Just days before President Trump brokered the historic peace deal between Israel and Hamas, our next guest sat down with the Prime Minister of Netanyahu and asked him about Israel's relationship with America.
America first, that's a natural position. It would be unnatural to have a different position. But America first doesn't mean America alone, because all countries need allies. And Israel is an ally. It's a fighting ally that pulls its weight. Not only that, not only do we fight, we don't ask for Americans to bring boots on the ground. We've done the job of defending ourselves pretty well, I'd say, over the last 77 years.
So let's bring in Ben Shapiro, who did that interview on the Ben Shapiro Show. So, Ben, that was a couple of days ago, and now it looks like the deal is done. The president's going to be heading over to the region and then going to the Knesset possibly to speak. How did he do it?
Well, I think the president ignored pretty much all the conventional wisdom, all the State Department conventional wisdom that has failed for 80 years. And that's why the president has a signally extraordinary record in the Middle East. He understands that in the Middle East, you actually have to force people to keep by their promises. He understands that supporting our allies in the Middle East is much smarter than pretending at neutrality between our allies and their enemies and our enemies as well. The president refused to accept the idea of an Iranian-dominated Middle East, and instead, he gave the Israelis what they needed to succeed militarily. And diplomatically, he worked with erstwhile allies like Qatar and Turkey and actually made them promise that they were going to push Hamas into the corner. That's the thing that changed between 2 years ago or a year ago and now. President Trump is the added ingredient and Israeli military victory across the Middle East.
What worries you most about what we know about the series of events that has to take place to start rebuilding Gaza and get to the peace part? Is it phase 2 that you're most worried about?
Absolutely. Phase 1 is an extraordinary achievement, like a Nobel Prize-worthy achievement by the president of the United States. One of the great diplomatic achievements of my lifetime, to get 20 live hostages and 28 dead hostages out with just an Israeli pullback to parts of the Gaza Strip to maintain their own security. What happens next in phase 2, whether there will be a provisional government, whether Hamas will actually give up its guns and disarm, whether there will be any sort of solid interim government that is created, capable of actually investing in the people of Gaza and building something working there. I mean, that is a very difficult task, and it remains to be seen how that plays out. The fact that phase 1 was disconnected from phase 2 such that Israel can still achieve its war aims, namely the protection of its own citizenry and getting back its own hostages with the help of the president of the United States. President Trump doing all of that while having the entire Arab world on his side and isolating Hamas is, again, an extraordinary achievement by the president.
Here's your prediction from last month.
I don't know when this war should end. I wish it would end tomorrow.
This is going to end, I believe, in the next 2 to 3 weeks. You will see a declaration of the end of the war by the Israeli government.
Oh,
you will
really?
You will see a movement of most of the population into humanitarian centers in Rafah and humanitarian enclaves on the coast, and then you will start to see a rebuilding.
Well done, Ben.
Well, you know, when you watch the region closely and you understand that President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu work well together, and you understand the extraordinary sacrifice that's been undergone by the Israeli people who have mobilized in unprecedented fashion with the support of the American people, by the way, not only in terms of funding, but in providing a president of the United States, President Donald J. Trump, who understands the region. The ingredients were there for success, and you could see the end of the war coming. We can all hope that the end of the war is now immediate.
So, Ben, the Wall Street Journal has this story today, how Trump's upside-down diplomacy delivered a victory. And he essentially said one of the key was not going to Europe, telling Secretary of State Rubio to stay back. The foreign ministers and heads of European states talked about the details. The president says, let's frame it out, worry about the details later, let's get to yes. And that's what brought us here.
100%. The president understands prioritization in the Middle East. It's how he got the Abraham Accords. He said, listen, the Palestinian issue is not the main issue. Economic cooperation and building toward a future is the main issue. And when it came to this negotiation, he said, Palestinian state, two-state solution, all of that stuff is not the main issue. The main issue here is how do you get the hostages out? How do you guarantee Israeli security? And how do you pressure Hamas into disarming such that there's the possibility of a future for this region?
Only 40 seconds left, but they were cheering Trump's name in Gaza. But yet here, these protesters are saying free Palestine. What don't they get? Does anyone there get a bulletin or they have any news feed on their phones?
Well, I think that this is the most telling part of all of this, is all the people who are protesting the supposed non-existent genocide in Gaza have totally disappeared. If they actually cared about the non-existent genocide in Gaza, you would imagine they would be celebrating today the end of that supposed genocide, but they've completely disappeared. Why? Because what they really want is more ugly pictures on their TV so they can beat up the state of Israel and Jews by extension. And the fact that they have gone completely silent demonstrates where their heart really lies.
And congratulations to you, Ben, for being steadfast through the entire process. It's not been easy. I know you've taken incoming fire, but you know what's right. And thanks so much for joining us today.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.